Waukesha Board of Education. I call the meeting to order. We'll start with the verification of meeting posting. Julie, can you please verify that the meeting has been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. Next, we come to our opportunity for citizens to speak. Do we have anyone signed up this evening?
We do not.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, we can move on to our first action item of the evening, which is approval of the minutes from our September 8th, 2025 Policy and Government Relations Committee meeting. Anyone have any questions, concerns, changes? Mrs. White?
I have no questions, and I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve from Mrs. White, seconded by Mr. Zenobia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, passes 5-0. All right, that takes us to policy and discussion information. This would be item D on the agenda. We do have a couple of technical corrections tonight, so I will turn that over to Dr. Siebert for discussion of items 1 and 2 on technical corrections for this month.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wad, and welcome, everyone. Wouldn't be the policy committee if we didn't have technical corrections almost every month. So we have 2 this evening, as Mr. Wad said. The first is to policy 0168.1, meeting minutes, and it's in the 4th paragraph, and it's just changing the words to say the official minutes shall be, rather than bound together, changing it to say maintained in print or electronic form. And it says they shall be accessible in the district office as opposed to the office of the board. Our minutes are contained electronically within board docs. So that's the first one. Should I just jump into the second one, Mr. Wad? Sure. Okay.
Please, go right ahead.
Thank you. So the second one, there's 2, the 3,000s and the 4,000s, professional staff and support staff. They each have their own different policies, but they're the same. So this is policy 3281 and policy 4281, which are personal property of staff members. Again, adding the title of the policy in, and actually that policy has a new number. It's 7530.02, staff and school officials' use of personal communication devices. And we'll actually talk more about that policy and some proposed changes to it later in our agenda, but it's just referencing it there. And then also that just changing it from Board of Education to district property, that the owner of the personal property bears and assumes responsibility.
Right,
Those are the 2 technical corrections.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert. Anyone have any questions on those? All right, seeing none, we can move on to agenda item E, policy discussions and possible action. Our first policy up for discussion is policy 0100, definitions. Dr. Siebert.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wad. So our definitions policy, we've talked about this one in the past, and periodically we need, or there are some recommended updates. Tonight's are in 2 areas, the first being under personal communication devices on page 3, also known as PCDs, and it's suggesting that we add smartwatches and wearable technology to the personal communication devices. We have Mr. Pat with us this evening to talk about how we implement policy 5136, which is our personal communication devices other than cell phones policy among students in our buildings, and why we think that smartwatches and wearable technology would be a good addition to personal communication devices. So we'll do that. And then there's also on page 4, there's an addition of school district classifications. So a definition of a common school district, a unified school district, and union high schools. All of those are subtly different. And after we talk about the smartwatches and wearable technology, I can kind of describe the differences between those types of school districts, just so you're all aware. So with that, Mr. Watt, I'd ask if we could have Mr. Pat kind of describe how we look at personal communication devices and the use of smartwatches and wearable technology.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert. Thank you for having me this evening.
So at our high schools, the personal communication devices come in a couple different forms. We have, again, you have the smartwatches that are worn by a multitude of students. Currently, as the policy reads, smartwatches are something that our students are able to have on them and act as a watch. So like you and I wear a normal watch to tell time, smartwatches are considered that until something else would come into play. So currently, under our current policy, or under this current policy, it talks about middle and high school students using PCDs or the watches other than cell phones during certain times, but they're considered a watch during the class time. Our cell phone policy, as you know, is for cell phones not to be on their person, to be in the phone caddies in our classrooms, and not to be on the individual or left in their lockers at our high school level. Middle school, they're in the lockers full time. In elementary, it's just not an issue. So for the PCDs, they're considered watches until something else would come into play where they would not be considered a watch any longer. And that follows that policy to a T. If there's a violation, if there's a disruption, then it is addressed accordingly. Additionally, for some of our students, they have the need from home to wear AngelSense is a company and a device that allows parents to track where their child is. There might be a need for the parent to track their child through GPS. That device does have capability of recording in other aspects. So we'll work with that family specifically to make sure and have them sign a contract so they turn certain features off of it. And that works really well for us, so they're allowed to keep track of where their student is, which is great, but also not have to worry about the personal technology violating school policy inadvertently. So we just make sure with that device that it's very clear on what we do. So that's kind of where things are at with smart watches in our buildings. What questions do you have further that I can help explain?
Mr. Zenobia.
Question, I don't know if you've seen this in the district yet, or is there any wearables other than watches currently being used that anyone has noticed, or I know I guess now there's glasses that work and record and all these things. It might be harder to spot those things, but.
Yeah, I know there's obviously you have glasses. You could talk about wearable technology. There's necklaces that do some things like that, jewelry that can record on some level. So we don't really know what that looks like or where that comes from per se. And it kind of all falls underneath the way we treat the smartwatches. That we don't really know any different. We're not looking for those things. If somebody were to try to use it, the policy is very clear that if you do this without the consent of administration or your teacher, that you fall under disciplinary consequences. So we have that as our policy that we follow very well. It's not been an issue up to this point whatsoever. I know in the state of Wisconsin law, if you're not asked or told that you're being recorded, obviously it can't be used against you in a court of law per se. But like anything else, we can't prevent certain technologies that we're not aware of from being utilized, but the policy covers us because we would have disciplinary action based on what our policy says.
Yeah, and I think the policy does certainly lay out very well why these things are being regulated, if you will. I guess my concern is not so much the policy is just to think about in the future as these things become more prevalent, I guess. How is it possible to really police them? And I agree, if we do catch it, great, then we can deal with it. But as far as the privacy implications go, I mean, these things will be very hard to, I guess not so much hard to detect, but while they're in use would be very hard to detect. I don't know if there's anything from a technology standpoint that can monitor that for us. Just a thought as I was reading through this, how quickly this is changing, and I'm sure that's talked about maybe in technology and other places that, we got great security in the schools. The question is, I guess I'm curious if it could help in this way in the future. So, but that would be a big concern of mine would be, ways of people doing things, recording things without really anyone knowing. It's easy to see someone holding up a phone, maybe even a smartwatch, but, in the future, that's going to be different, so.
Yeah, as technology changes and, if certain trends happen, we'll address that accordingly. Generally, if people are going to use it to go to social media and they're now taking away that privacy where they're showing something that happened in school, even if it's outside of the school day on a social media account, we obviously know where it happened. So we can take disciplinary action accordingly and then put things in place for students that can't handle technology properly. And that's kind of where we are at right now. I think it's like anything else, right? As technology changes, we have to change policy to rise up and meet whatever it's asking of us, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you.
Other questions? So just to clarify, we've added smartwatches and wearable technology to our definitions so that if there is an issue with an item like a watch or perhaps glasses or some other wearable technology, we can enforce the device policy. It's not that we are banning them per se from the classroom. We're saying this gives us the latitude to deal with them if they become a problem in specific cases. Is that a fair
Yes, that's correct.
characterization? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Pat? All right, thank you so much for coming and clarifying, providing us some context there. Dr. Siebert, you had some things you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I'll just go through. So thank you, Mr. Pat. We appreciate that. On page 4, there are definitions, like I said earlier, of common school districts, unified school districts, union high school districts. We are a unified school district. But common school districts, so those can be K-8s or those can be K-12s. The difference between the K-8 ones is they can have 3 board members unless they border with a town that has at least 500 people, then they can have 5 board members. Then there's also the common school districts that are K-12, and those can have 3, 5, 7, or 9 board members. That's what's different about them. The other thing that's different about common and then union high school districts, and the union high school districts are 9-12 school districts, they can't have more than 11 board members unless they have a plan of apportionment, which we don't have, but in some districts you get elected by, you have to live in a certain area, and then you get elected for that particular seat. So the other thing that's unique about common and union high school districts is they have annual meetings, and that's all laid out in statute what the annual meeting covers. In unified school districts such as ourselves, we have a budget hearing. We're not allowed to have an annual meeting, so that's a distinction. And a unified school district can have 5, 7, or like in our case, 9 board members. And what sets apart the unified school districts is that they're set in, generally speaking, larger cities. That's the difference, with the exception of MPS, or the Milwaukee Public Schools, which is a city, a district of the first class. They're the only one in Wisconsin. But you're larger, and there's population guidelines. I didn't exactly want to get into all that with you, but it's bigger cities that become the unified school district. So that's the difference between them, and they're just listed in there for definition purposes, I guess, should we ever need to reference them.
All right, any questions on that, or really anything on the policy changes overall? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for adoption.
I move adoption of revisions to policy 0100 definitions.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
Second it?
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Brooks, a second by Ms. Voigt. Any further discussion? If not, we'll go to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, next policy is 7530.02, staff and school district officials' use of personal communication devices. So we already learned a little bit about that on the student side. So
We did.
now we'll look at the staff
Yeah.
policy.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Wad. Let's look at the staff and school officials side of it. And so we're referencing in the beginning the policy we just discussed, the definitions policy, just adding that title. But then it's the second paragraph where we're outlining conducting district business using a PCD with two sentences. So the first one being, employees and school officials are permitted to use a board-owned or personally owned PCD to make and receive calls, send and receive emails, send and receive texts, and send and receive instant messages that concern district business of any kind. And then secondly, employees and school officials are responsible for archiving such communication or communications in accordance with the district's requirements as outlined in policy 8310, public records. And if you'll recall, this probably dates back about a year, we updated policy 8310 to just have a universal 7-year records retention schedule. It used to be multiple pages of different lengths, which became confusing. We don't think that we think this just provides clarity for our employees and school officials, and we also have the ability, certainly with the emails, that we can archive those as a district, right? That's not a problem. It's more the text messages or instant messages, perhaps, that are around district business. This has nothing to do with people's personal information, but that they would be responsible for archiving that. And this would be much more in the case, I would say, generally speaking, of school officials as opposed to general staff, but it certainly applies to everybody within the school district.
All right, thank you, Dr. Siebert. Any questions for Dr. Siebert? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion for adoption.
I move to approve revisions to policy 7530.02, staff and school officials' use of personal communication devices.
Thank you, Ms. Gren. Do I have a second?
Second.
I'm going to go with Mr. Zenobia on that. So we have a motion from Ms. Gren, second by Mr. Zenobia. Any discussion? If not, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of adoption, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, next we have our government relations discussion and information items. Dr. Siebert.
All right, so tonight, I thought we could just do a high-level overview of the Wisconsin Legislature fall floor period. Mr. Brooks can be of great assistance since he lives that on a daily basis. But some of the things dating back into early September were some ideas around funding healthy meals for all kids, requiring the publication of voucher costs on property tax bills, and then providing general equalization aid in the amount designed to equal the allowable revenue limit of $325, plus additional dollars to meet CPI. There's also been some discussion around a proposed teacher's Bill of Rights that would create new state standards for student behavior and discipline. There's the concept of Act 20, which is our reading legislation, but for math, and having similar legislation that would drive mathematics improvement. A lot of discussion around consolidation and shared services, encouraging districts to consolidate. We have a lot of small districts, and a lot of small districts are struggling. We all have our challenges, but then that oftentimes can lead to referendums or things like that. So there's referendum discussion as well. But there was a joint informational hearing on September 24th on the consolidation and shared services. And what I thought was really interesting is that a lot of the background for that, talked about population trends and declining birth rate, right? So I had mentioned I was at an economic forum in one of our recent updates with just all Waukesha County business people, and the constant topic was the lack of birth rate, which is now finding its way into the workforce too, right? So it's interesting that we're so into that conversation, and that conversation is now happening on a statewide and national level as well, and has been. There's some discussion on streamlining dual enrollment and the early college credit program. So we participate in all of those programs, as well as a dual enrollment academy with WCTC, and then we have our transcripted credits too, that kids take classes in high school, but they get the college credit. So some of those, like Darren talked about in F&F, we pay for some of those credits fully, and then there's others where we get some state reimbursement for it, and I think there's discussion of should that all look the same. And then there's also a discussion on restricting drone use on school property. So, Mr. Brooks, anything that you think I missed that you're seeing and living?
No, I mean, that's a good rundown of some of the big topics. I will, one bill I know, just because we've discussed this topic and framework here at this, both in this committee and at the full board meeting a lot, is there's a bill actually that my boss introduced that was requiring school districts to have all of their financial information submitted to DPI on time, accordance with state deadlines before they're able to go to referendum. So DPI would need to certify that the school district has completed all their financial information before that district is able to place a operating or capital referendum question on the ballot. And there was a committee hearing on that last week. What was interesting to me was, and I guess not surprising, but interesting, was that DPI registered against this bill. And it seems to me like it would have, if this were in place back when MPS passed their massive referendum, DPI wouldn't have had to withhold $42 million from MPS and have this large public battle, and it would have solved a lot of problems. I mean, the other thing that we talked about too is how the passage of that referendum really impacts other school districts because of the way that the school funding formula and state aid is calculated. So if the biggest school district in the state doesn't have their financial information into DPI on time, then that throws off the aid calculations for everybody else. And then on top of that, when the referendum is passed because of our funding formula, it actually draws aid from a number of school districts. I think 357 of our 420 school districts in the state lost aid because of the referendum that was passed, despite the fact that voters didn't know that MPS was late on their finances. So simple bill doesn't actually require districts to do anything else. It just says that in order for you to go to referendum, you have to be following the law, which seems like a very common sense thing. Apparently DPI disagrees with that, but that was the only other, not necessarily as big of a topic as school consolidation or teacher bill of rights, things like that, but personal pet project of mine for the last couple of months, so thought I'd just give it a shout out.
Sure. So we'll continue to monitor and continue to report out to the committee on things that we're seeing, and continue to have conversations with our legislators if they call us, which happens periodically, or we have ongoing dialogue and meetings with them. But anybody has any other questions, I can certainly try to help answer them, but more than anything, just an awareness of kind of what's being talked about in the education landscape, and we'll see where it goes.
So there was a lot in that list of things that I have an interest in. I think the one that I would be most interested in hearing more about, kind of where it's at in the process of being drafted, what its goals are, how it could impact us, is the math version, I think, of Act 20, right? And I mean, we obviously have seen significant impact on our district from that and some of the processes we use. We've invested a significant amount in our math curriculum in recent years, and so I think it would be good to know where that is headed. And I don't know if this is in the infancy stages. Mr. Brooks, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so I think from my understanding, the bill hasn't been introduced yet. I know it was just kind of brought up as a topic. So I think where they're trying to focus on, at least early on with the math version of Act 20, is having some sort of screener, similar to what we do with our reading screener that we've been implementing this past school year. Having some sort of similar screener for math, where if a student isn't meeting grade level expectations in various categories of mathematics, that there would be kind of a individualized math plan to help get that student caught up to speed. One of the challenges that we face is, so when we were drafting Act 20, we had a lot of states that had done something similar to Act 20, Mississippi being the one that everybody talks about, the Mississippi Miracle. So we had something really solid to kind of model our legislation after when we were doing that bill. There's not as much out there on math, but I think like we're seeing in Wisconsin, a number of states are seeing, okay, we're seeing these gains in reading because we've implemented these evidence-based strategies. How can we get similar results in math? Because we're starting to see our math scores take a dip, and obviously reading is very important. There's a lot of direct links between early literacy and societal impacts. And if you can't read, you're probably not going to be able to do math all that well, because those word problems get really tricky real quick. But I think we're looking to see what can we do at an early level just to be able to catch some of these kids that are slipping through the cracks and give them more personalized supports to help get them caught up.
Do you have any other insight on that particular initiative?
No, I'm grateful for Mr. Brooks,
Okay,
but we'll continue to monitor it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. White?
You had mentioned the dual enrollment transcripted credit kind of legislative piece. Does it sound like they're trying to be able to support the the reimbursement for those services more so than anything, or?
I'm not aware of what exactly it is. I was more trying to understand, in our case, the difference between the programs and which ones are funded and which ones aren't. So in the early college credit program, there is some reimbursement from the state. With like our Start College Now, there isn't. So it's a different, there are two different programs. And this early college credit is with universities, the Start College Now is with technical colleges. And so you saw, Mrs. Voigt, in F&F, how our payments to like WCTC really increased from in the $200,000 ballpark to a little over $400,000. We think that's great money to spend, because we think it's a huge leg up for kids and their families. And we have more and more kids that are getting technical degrees or associate degrees while they're in high school, all wonderful things. But I'll do some more research into that. Mr. Brooks, do you know anything about that one?
I'm not as familiar with that one. I know Representative Murphy's this is something he's been working on for several months, and it sounds like from what he's said that there seems to be interest on the part of the UW to get this done too. I think what he's spoken about is just streamlining it, because right now there's a lot of complexities in our dual enrollment process, in addition to things that Dr. Siebert said. Not every university accepts the same dual enrollment credits, and so I think that was part of it too, was kind of making that more universal from my understanding. But I haven't been as plugged in on that one as I have been on others. But I know Rep. Murphy's been, he chairs the colleges and universities committee, so I know he's been really passionate about this for a while.
Yeah. So we can continue to monitor that one too, Mrs. White.
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, one thing I'll mention about the package around consolidation. So the focus there is more on district-to-district consolidation, not necessarily school districts like Waukesha, where we're looking just internally at our footprint, but specifically looking at some of these smaller school districts. So my boss represents Kenosha County. In our district, we have about 9 single-school K-8 school districts that are within 5-10 minutes drive of each other. And so I think part of it there is, how do we incentivize schools either merging with other K-8s just to kind of right size that footprint and do what we're trying to do here, which is make sure that resources are going to the classroom and that we're not just spending a bunch of money on building costs or maintenance costs, but also looking at shared services. So like, if you have 2 school districts that are 10 minutes away from each other, should they both be paying for a snow removal contract, or could they share that service and try to find some efficiencies there? We have 421 school districts in the state of Wisconsin. I know a lot of districts especially some of these smaller rural ones, are looking at the same demographic trends that we are here, and they're feeling it a little bit more because they only have a couple hundred kids in their school district. And part of it is just trying to help them, give them the resources to do the right thing. I mean, we're being very proactive here in Waukesha with our Optimizing the Future plan. Not every school district in the state of Wisconsin, as we've seen, has been that proactive, and sometimes you need to just provide that incentive up front. And one of the things that we're looking at is providing like some grant money for a feasibility study. So a lot of times, one of the big barriers is that school districts, they don't even want to start this conversation and get the public fired up about it if they don't even know if it's feasible. And as we know, some of these feasibility studies can cost money, and if you're a small school district that is already, you only have a little bit of a limited amount of money to work with, might not be your top priority. Another thing that we're looking at that we see, especially with how many districts have gone to referendum, is how do we try to handle the issue of the debt? That's another big barrier for school districts that are trying to merge with one another. If one school district's debt is significantly higher than another's, or we see varying mill rates where that can pose a barrier to consolidation because one community doesn't want to take on the other community's debt. One community doesn't, they don't necessarily know how to figure that piece out. So we're trying to work through some of those logistical barriers that can cause a problem when it comes to districts trying to look into consolidation. And I'll say, we've had really good feedback on a lot of this stuff from groups like WASB and groups like some of the district administrators organizations, because I think they're feeling it with their member schools as well, right? And some of those schools might not be willing to come out publicly and say that they need this help, but if the state can kind of provide some of those resources to help them get through that process, and we eventually get to a right place with them, I think that's something that a lot of people could support and could get signed into law. We'll see. Gotta roll out the bills first, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you for that, Mr. Brooks. Anyone else have any questions, comments? All right. That takes us to other business, which would include recommendations for future meetings. Do I have any recommendations for future policy and government relations meeting? All right, seeing none. The next Policy and Government Relations Committee meeting will be Monday, November 10th, 2025, here in the boardroom at the Blair Administration Building. With that, meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.